Please welcome the one, we hope the only, Triple H.
Ladies and gentlemen, Triple H.
He has gone from WWE superstar to executive vice president.
He's such a personality and such an image.
You know him as the cerebral assassin, the king of kings.
I'm naked except I've got a skin-colored thong on, right? So nobody can see. With Kane's mask on, pretending I'm Kane, I'm on top of the coffin having mock sex with this mannequin.
Oh my God!
Hello.
Imagine the roar of the crowd, the iconic sound of Motorhead, and a man standing in the centre of it all, drenched in sweat and intensity, wielding a sledgehammer. For decades, Paul Levesque, better known to the world as Triple H, has been a titan in professional wrestling, one of WWE's most iconic superstars and a pivotal force behind the scenes. But the path he travelled to reach this level of influence is riddled with ambition, controversy, and ruthless power plays that even the most hardcore fans may not know. This documentary peels back the curtain, revealing not just the champion you see on stage, but the man, Paul Levesque, who carved his own legacy in ways both admirable and, at times, questionable. Beyond the glitz and spectacle of WrestleMania and Monday Night Raw lies a story filled with tension and turmoil. As Triple H rose to fame, whispers of backstage politics began to circulate. How did Paul Levesque manage to maintain such a tight grip on his standing within WWE's hierarchy, and how did his ambitions impact the careers of his peers in ways that only insiders can fully appreciate? But this documentary isn't only about the world of wrestling. It dives deep into Paul Levesque's personal life, where rumours and mysteries surround the man behind the persona. We'll explore his controversial relationship with WWE heiress Stephanie McMahon, a union that may have fortified his standing in the company, but also came with its own set of challenges and criticisms. As we uncover stories of power, betrayal and ambition, we'll ask the ultimate question: how far did Paul Levesque go to secure his place in wrestling history? And what secrets still remain buried in the shadowy world of WWE? Paul Levesque was born on July 27, 1969, in Nashua, New Hampshire. Growing up in a small working-class town, he was drawn to strength sports and physicality from an early age, admiring bodybuilders and idolizing the larger-than-life athletes he saw on TV. As a young teenager, he discovered professional wrestling, and from that point on, he became obsessed with the spectacle and drama of the sport. At just 14, he began training to build his physique, envisioning himself as one of the powerful figures he admired. This passion ultimately led him to pursue a career in wrestling, a decision that would forever alter his life. In an early interview, Paul recalled his first encounters with the industry, saying, "Growing up, I always wanted to be in the WWE. I wanted to be like Ric Flair, Harley Race, guys like that. For me, it wasn't just about winning titles, it was about respect, about being the guy everyone wanted to be." This single-minded drive and vision laid the foundation for his intense dedication and ambition, qualities that would later propel him into the upper echelons of WWE. In the early months of 1990, a young Paul Levesque, who would eventually rise to stardom as Triple H, embarked on his journey into the world of professional wrestling. He commenced his training at Killer Kowalski's renowned wrestling school in Walton, Massachusetts. Among his peers at the school were two future WWF luminaries, Chyna and Perry Saturn. On March the 24th, Paul Levesque made his highly anticipated pro wrestling debut within the realm of Kowalski's promotion, the International Wrestling Federation, adopting the terrible ring name of Terra Ryzing. In a memorable initiation, he emerged victorious over Tony Roy, marking the commencement of his wrestling career. In the ensuing months, Levesque continued to ascend in the wrestling world, achieving notable milestones. His triumphs included a memorable victory over Mad Dog Richard, securing the prestigious IWF Heavyweight Championship. During this period, he also had the privilege of being managed by John Rodeo, while showcasing his talents across various promotions within the vibrant East Coast independent circuit.
Hunter always wanted to be the guy. Everyone should want to have that desire.
In early 1994, Paul Levesque made his television debut with World Championship Wrestling, marking his first step into the national wrestling spotlight. He signed a 1-year contract and appeared as a villain under the name Terra Ryzing. Though this character name was short-lived, his first match against Keith Cole was a promising introduction to the world of televised wrestling. Soon after, Levesque's character was rebranded as Terra Ryzing, a slight modification that aimed to give him a menacing persona, but still felt generic and underdeveloped. Reflecting on those early days, Levesque later admitted, "In WCW, they didn't know what to do with me. They just kept trying different things, but it always felt like I was a cog in a much bigger machine that didn't see where I fit in." Despite the lack of creative direction, Levesque's time in WCW helped him refine his character, establish his in-ring presence, and gain crucial experience on a national stage. By mid-1994, Levesque's character underwent another transformation, this time adopting the ring name Jean-Paul Levesque. Embracing his French heritage, WCW asked him to portray a sophisticated, French-speaking aristocrat, despite the fact that he didn't actually speak French. Levesque even attempted a French accent to fit the part, but he felt this gimmick didn't play to his strengths. In his own words, it was almost laughable. "I'm from New Hampshire, not Paris, and here I was trying to sound French. It felt like I was playing a role instead of being myself." During this period, he began using his now iconic finishing move, the pedigree, which would become his signature throughout his career. Though limited by the gimmick, the introduction of the pedigree showcased Levesque's ability to create memorable, powerful moves that matched his personality. Levesque's stint in WCW included a brief partnership with Lord Steven Regal, whose British aristocratic character was similar to Levesque's Jean-Paul Levesque. The alliance with Regal was one of the few highlights of Levesque's WCW run, as the two shared good chemistry in their upper-crust, villainous roles. However, the pairing was cut short as Levesque began to look for opportunities outside of WCW, frustrated with his limited creative freedom. His final major storyline in WCW involved a brief feud with Alex Wright, ending in a loss at the Starrcade event in December 1994. Shortly after, Levesque made the life-changing decision to leave WCW, rejecting their offer of a new contract. He later explained his reasons for departing. "I knew if I wanted to really grow in this business, I needed a fresh start. I didn't want to be boxed into a character I didn't believe in." This bold move set him on a path to the World Wrestling Federation, where he would soon reinvent himself and take control of his wrestling destiny.
We all do it because we all have one goal in mind, and that's to be the best in this business.
When Paul Levesque joined the WWF in 1995, he was introduced under a new persona, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, a snobbish Connecticut blue blood with a disdainful attitude and a sense of aristocratic entitlement. This character was a refined version of the sophisticated, upper-class gimmick he had tried to embody in WCW, but with a twist of his own creation. Originally, the WWF wanted to call him Reginald DuPont Helmsley, but Levesque negotiated for something that allowed more flexibility. "I suggested Hunter Hearst Helmsley," he recalled, "because I wanted to make it my own. I wanted something I could work with, something that would stick." Management agreed, and Triple H was born. Vignettes were broadcast to introduce his character, with Levesque demonstrating proper etiquette and deriding the unsophisticated American crowd, an effective way to set him up as a heel in the company. Helmsley made his in-ring debut on April 30th, 1995.
Give me 5 minutes of your time. If I can get in the ring and show you what I can do in 5 minutes, either you think I'm something you're interested in or you think I'm not, then all you're wasting is 5 minutes.
And followed up with a successful pay-per-view debut at SummerSlam, where he defeated Bob Holly. In the early months of his WWF career, Helmsley enjoyed a string of victories, establishing him as an up-and-coming star with a pompous, aristocratic flair. "I wanted to be different, to stand out," Levesque reflected. "The Connecticut blue blood was just a starting point, but I knew I had to make it memorable." Helmsley's undefeated streak finally ended in the Survivor Series that year, where he was pinned by The Undertaker, a formidable opponent and one of WWF's top stars. It was a significant moment for Levesque, as it put him on the radar of fans and fellow wrestlers alike, showcasing his potential against established superstars. However, Helmsley's momentum began to wane in 1996, and he found himself in less prominent storylines, including a feud with Duke the Dumpster Droz. His character's initial allure had started to fade, and his bookings became inconsistent. As a sign of his early struggles, Helmsley suffered his first singles loss in the WWF against Bret Hart in March 1996.
But to come back after 3 years, I was going to come back and make an impression.
The Ultimate Warrior would eventually return in March of 1996 at WrestleMania. The feeling of his remarkable victory over Honky Tonk Man for the Intercontinental title all those years ago attempting to be evoked, but sadly falling short once again. This time Warrior was the older veteran returning to squash an up-and-coming star in Hunter Hearst Helmsley. The match ended with Warrior receiving the pedigree finisher and standing up immediately to finish the short bout in his old familiar fashion. I'm pretty sure I was doing Gorilla that night. Yes, I was not happy about it. Vince watched it on air live. He wasn't really happy with it. I was just pissed off about it. I felt that it was abusing the fact that Vince wasn't there backstage. It wasn't good. I didn't think that it did really much for Warrior. If Warrior just beats a piece of shit, then he just beat a piece of shit. If he beat a guy that, was out there and gave him some kind of challenge, then it would have been a bigger win. So for me, I was just not happy. I knew it beforehand, and I was not happy with it when they went to the ring, and I was even less happy when they came back. So I didn't like it. I hated it. And not everyone else was happy about it either, the match originally being planned to showcase both wrestlers before the script was changed by Warrior. We thought if anybody could lead Warrior to a big match and give him a big win, Triple H was it. It was never meant to be a short match that it became. Warrior changed it that day. I think Gerald Briscoe was the agent, and Warrior was like, nah, this is the match we're going to do. Went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And at that point, it gets the match in the ring.
And I looked right at Hunter, and I said, if you ever have anything that you need to discuss with me, you need to come to discuss it with me, face-to-face, man-to-man. Right. We're done.
On June 1st, 1996, Hunter Hearst Helmsley faced Marty Garner on Superstars in a match that would become infamous for an unexpected, dangerous incident. As Triple H set up his finishing move, the pedigree, Garner misunderstood it as a double underhook suplex, attempting to jump up with the maneuver. This miscommunication resulted in Garner landing directly on his head, causing neck damage and bringing the match to an abrupt, painful halt.
He was new there. Of course, I was new. That was like my second match at WWE. And he said, can you take the pedigree? And I said, absolutely. I didn't even know what the pedigree was. All right. I mean, he was so new. I really hadn't watched it that much. So I didn't know what the pedigree was. So when he hooked me, he put my head under his legs, in his legs like that and hooked me. I thought, hey, this is going to be a power bomb type deal. So I kicked hard. When I kicked, as you can see on the video, I went straight up and straight down. And it looked like a double underhook pile driver. And he thought he broke my neck.
Initially, reports surfaced that Garner had sued the WWF over the injury, leading to an out-of-court settlement. However, years later, in 2020, Garner clarified that no such lawsuit ever took place. Some moves, for example, the devastating and destructive powerbomb, for one reason or another, have been adapted and used in brutal fashion by uncountable amounts of athletes in the Squared Circle's history. Other moves in pro wrestling, however, come to be so entwined with a single wrestler's career that for the longest time, it's all anyone could ever think about when the move's brought up in conversation. As wrestling evolves and the performers themselves in the world of sports entertainment continue to adapt and improve, we find ourselves in a climate where very few moves are protected and reserved for use by one person. Pro Wrestling Wiki states, a facebuster, also known as a faceplant, is generally a takedown move in professional wrestling in which an attacking wrestler forces their opponent down to the mat face first without involving a headlock or facelock. In the modern day, the term facebuster is used loosely to describe a huge array of different moves within pro wrestling. From the innovative Argentine facebuster, the iconic Gory Bomb, adapted by wrestling legend Gory Guerrero, to the excitingly named belly-to-back wheelbarrow facebuster, which is as painful to receive as it is to say. You can see why it may be hard to trace the exact lineage of this much-adapted move, but if we narrow our definition in the hunt of the origins of what we know today as the pedigree in WWE. The move is known by its technical name, the double underhook facebuster. Pro Wrestling Wiki states, the wrestler bends their opponent forward, placing the opponent's head between the wrestler's legs, and then applies a double underhook onto their opponent. The wrestler then performs a kneeling or sit-out facebuster. The double underhook part of the name refers to the specific way in which the aggressor folds their opponent in half with their elbows raised towards the sky. The attacking wrestler then links their arms together around the extended arms of their opponent. This means that as the wrestlers fall to the ground, the attacker's full weight comes down on the opponent's head with no means of defending themselves from the crushing and sudden stop of the mat, or, as we've seen numerous times, harder surfaces in and around the ring. Online records discuss several wrestlers who used a version of the double underhook facebuster throughout wrestling's past. From Colonel De Beers, a wrestler known for his matches in Pro Wrestling USA and the AWA, was known to use a version of the move in the early 1980s. A wrestler by the name of Ron Bass used the facebuster variant, but he was not consistent with holding the arms behind the back. Arguably, Ron Bass's version of the facebuster happened much more commonly without the double underhook being applied, and although he had a great run in the WWF during the 1980s, it's hard to say whether Bass invented the move. He made it look devastating though, crushing his foe's face deep into the mat. And, if you don't think all that sounds painful enough, one of the biggest, heaviest men to ever lace up their wrestling boots, an absolute ham hock, Andre the Giant, can be seen here, pulverizing his opponent with his version of the pedigree. Imagine how much Andre's penis would weigh, coming down on you. That alone is surely worth the 1, 2, 3. Now, in the modern day, you're more likely to find Paul Levesque sitting behind a big desk at the WWE headquarters, or producing one of the world's most exciting wrestling brands in NXT. Don't let that charming grin and well-tailored suit fool you. Starting out his career as a pro wrestler in training, Levesque absorbed as much knowledge as he could from his tutors and mentors. It's interesting, the pedigree. For me, it started actually when I was training with Killer Kowalski, Triple H recalled. Kowalski used to do it in a spot where he'd put a guy's head between his knees and he would jump up and just kind of jar their neck. It just dawned on me that if he kept going straight down to his knees, it was like a sort of version of a pile driver. And as I looked at it, I thought, well, if you held the guy's arms, it would be very clearly a pile driver. So it started out as that in my mind. I've always thought that it was something very unique that I had never seen before. It sort of slowly evolved into me hooking the arms behind the guy's back and then jumping up and having them come down full body, face first. As John Paul Levesque, a French aristocrat in WCW, before making the switch to WWF in 1995, where he kept his pompous attitude under the name Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and needed an equally fitting name for his finishing move. Iconic wrestler Michael P.S. Hayes is credited with coining the term pedigree, and the name has been adopted as the de facto title of the move across most of wrestling ever since. The move has since proved timeless through 4 decades and hundreds of opponents. Triple H has carved out a legacy with his version of the double underhook facebuster, using the pedigree to win numerous title belts in now iconic matches at WrestleMania and beyond. Triple H was named Wrestler of the Decade for the 2000s by Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine, and the pedigree was a huge part of that success. The game Triple H even made the move look even more brutal against Mick Foley in now legendary, if not a little sickening matches, through tables and even onto metal tacks. Upon his return to the company, Scott Hall had begun to align himself with the real-life backstage faction known as the Clique. Formed of Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, Paul Levesque, Triple H, and the 1-2-3 kid Sean Waltman, the group was notorious for their ability to influence decision-makers behind the curtain and get in the ear of executives within the company. This power over their own contracts and careers drew the ire from many fellow performers. Perhaps through jealousy or a dislike of the power imbalance, there was friction growing amongst the roster. The other clear thing that was growing was the members of the Clique's popularity and, more importantly, their egos. This led to a series of contract renegotiation by the likes of Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, who wanted more financial compensation for the viewership figures WWF were seeing at the time.
Then when the window came, time for them to be able to discuss and talk with other groups, they went in and they made their deal. but it was letters of offer and things like that. Not necessarily contract negotiations and shit like that was going on, but at first, I heard it was Razor Ramon and it was the rumblings about Kevin Nash, because both were asked. Razor stepped up and said, "Yeah, I'm thinking about making a move. If you guys can give me a guarantee and I knew what I was making, then I would consider it, to stay." Kevin said he wasn't leaving. Kevin had given Vince his word, "I'm not leaving." That turned out to not be the case.
Inside one of the homes of modern pro wrestling, Madison Square Garden in New York, with Triple H and Razor Ramon clashing in an earlier bout, Kevin Nash, as Diesel, was facing off against Shawn Michaels in the main event. When Scott made his way out to the ring after the final bell, the fans in attendance celebrated as the good guys stood victorious. He did the unthinkable and hugged the other Clique members in the ring.
Shawn Michaels kind of threw Triple H under the bus that night at the Garden. Triple H was supposed to get the big push. He was supposed to get the Stone Cold spot. They were grooming him for that, but then Vince had to punish somebody. I was in Vince's office when Shawn came in and pitched the curtain call. Vince was finally talking to me about staying and I was like, "It's too late, I'm done." Shawn came in and said, "I want Razor to come out to the ring in my match." Vince said, "Is it important to you?" And Shawn said yeah, and Vince goes, "Well, make it happen." He knew, but I think what happened was, now the guys are trying to bring the business down. The guys who were staying were really mad. I'm glad we did it. I didn't plan it, it was all Shawn's idea and he was the one staying. It got really heavy. There's a famous picture of Shawn wearing one of the early Outsiders shirts. I think he was doing that just to give him some kind of ammunition with Vince. Now he's thrown his last buddy, Triple H, under the ring, so he's there solo now with no friends. It's lonely at the top. I think that's when Michaels may have started his pill use and his alcohol use may have increased at the time.
As they posed towards the crowd, the four men in one of the first recorded incidents which proved that pro wrestling was nothing more than physical theatre. A clear display that these four men were merely playing characters, and after the final curtain fell, they are all just actors and friends behind the scenes. At this point, the mystery of kayfabe and the belief that everything that happened in pro wrestling was real, for some, was still just that, a mystery. The formation of D-Generation X in 1997 marked a bold and controversial turning point in WWF's evolution, with Triple H at its core, alongside Shawn Michaels, Chyna and Rick Rude. Triple H helped create a faction that embodied rebellion, irreverence and chaos. DX's provocative antics broke all the rules, mocking authority, taunting executives and pushing the limits of what was acceptable in mainstream entertainment. Their outrageous promos, crude humour, and audacious taunts at Vince McMahon made them the face of the Attitude Era, an era that brought wrestling into the cultural mainstream. Triple H reflected on this time, saying, "We weren't just playing characters, we were expressing something real." DX was about pushing the envelope, breaking rules, and having the freedom to say and do things no one else would. We wanted to show that we didn't care about tradition or authority, we were there to shake things up. This mindset resonated with fans, but it also created significant controversy among those who valued the traditions of professional wrestling. As DX gained fame, it became one of the most divisive factions in the industry. While many fans embraced the group's rebellious energy, there was backlash from several veteran wrestlers who believed that DX's antics were disrespectful to the sport's traditions. Bret Hart, who was known for his commitment to wrestling's history and professionalism, was one of the harshest critics. Hart described DX as childish and accused them of disrespecting the tradition of the business. For Hart, the group's antics, including their unfiltered language and immature humour, lowered the standard of what wrestling should represent. The Undertaker, another pillar of the company who valued the mystique and seriousness of the business, also reportedly disapproved of DX's approach, viewing their behaviour as unprofessional and beneath the dignity of the wrestling world. This divide between the old guard and the new generation of wrestlers like Triple H revealed deeper tensions about the direction of WWF during this transformative period. Criticism of DX wasn't limited to just a few wrestlers, it also came from those involved behind the scenes. Jim Cornette, a veteran manager and booker, was one of the most vocal detractors, calling DX's antics juvenile and nonsensical. Cornette believed that the group's reliance on personal insults, crude humour, and shocking behaviour undermined the seriousness of professional wrestling, which he felt was built on athleticism, storytelling, and respect. He famously called them two degenerates just acting out for laughs, criticising their disregard for the business's integrity. These criticisms highlighted a deeper split in WWF, with some wrestlers and personalities advocating for a return to traditional values, while DX, led by Triple H, was pushing for an irreverent shift that ultimately defined the Attitude Era.
You might be the world's most dangerous man, but I'm bringing something with me even deadlier than that.
In January of 1997, Joni got in her car with her muscles pumped and her focus solely on one goal. She had persuaded her wrestling trainer and WWE Hall of Famer Killer Kowalski to get her a chance at the big time. She arrived at the WWF show in Massachusetts and immediately fell in love with the grandeur of the event. After the matches had all taken place, the pair went backstage. It was here that Joni waited for an hour until the pros started to leave the locker room. With a lump in her throat, she pushed past a number of other fans who were waiting for autographs and introduced herself to none other than Shawn Michaels and Triple H. The ease with which she had parted the large crowd and her dedication to making herself known in any other business could be seen as rude and would probably get you removed from most job interviews. But this is not most jobs, and this is not any other business. This is pro wrestling. She came home that night and never slept. We knew her life was about to change. She was so excited and also a little scared. The two pros went back to their hotel, talking about this giant woman for the entire car ride. The way she had expertly managed the crowd gave the pair an idea. They wanted to be seen as huge celebrities every time they made their ways onto our television screens and as they entered the ring. And of course, all big-time A-listers have to have a bodyguard who keeps the grovelling masses from interacting with them. But other wrestlers had used enforcers, protectors and bodyguards in the past. This was the Attitude Era, and Shawn Michaels and Triple H wanted to lead that change. But what if their enforcer was a woman? Initially, a lot of old-timers, including myself, didn't think it was appropriate, but she overcame all of that apprehension and proved people wrong. Chyna was a trailblazer. She broke all kinds of barriers. Killer Kowalski played no small part at this time too. He made contact with Shane McMahon and reinforced to him what the son of the owner of WWF had been hearing from Triple H and Shawn Michaels backstage. I introduced her to Shane McMahon, the son of Vince McMahon. I tried to explain to him that on my answering machine at home, I had received a message from Kevin Nash of World Championship Wrestling. Nash and Triple H called us to take this here girl that you've trained and tried to hire her, that she might be pretty good. I told Shane McMahon the whole story and I said WCW is interested in this girl. Why don't you guys take her? I talked to him twice again and he said, we'll hire her. And now a different type of plant. Throughout the long history of pro wrestling, many performers have started their on-screen careers by pretending to be fans who were later called out from the crowd or burst out through their own free will. The ninth wonder of the world and pioneer of female athletes, Chyna, made her WWF debut as a muscled fan who got involved to strangle the unsuspecting Terry. The following night, the WWE fans eagerly tuned into Monday Night Raw, anticipating another memorable appearance from this enigmatic figure who had taken the wrestling world by storm. As the lights dimmed and the cameras panned to the ring, there she was, Chyna, the enforcer and bodyguard for the infamous DX, which had been co-founded by none other than the legendary Shawn Michaels and Triple H. Pacific Blue is a television series revolving around the lives of the Santa Monica Police Department and their adventures fighting crime whilst riding around the area surrounding the beach on their bikes in matching tracksuits. Yeah, it's hilarious. A premise which is ridiculous enough to facilitate cameos from pro wrestlers, and over the show's 101 episodes, we got to see a host of muscle-clad superstars make their way onto the program. All three members of D-Generation X featured on separate episodes. I don't know if it's because when Paul Levesque swims on his back in the sea, his huge nose makes people think there's about to be a shark attack, but something about the long-time WWE man makes me think of the ocean. It makes perfect sense to me then that the first episode I'd like to talk about is called Seduce with Triple H, playing the role of an evil henchman using his in-ring skills in a villainous way. Taking out several of the female agents, one with a swift slam of the head against a wall, and one, which made me laugh out loud, where he picks up a woman and delivers a suplex to the concrete floor. Out of context, this whole show is hilarious, with the full-grown men and women doing stunts on their bikes to an extremely 90s soundtrack. But seeing such a big man pick up a tiny woman and slam her down in a manner which is meant to be taken deadly seriously made me crack up. Triple H's next attack happens to Slater from Saved by the Bell when he delivers a swift elbow and then lifts the dimpled hunk up by his throat. The sound effects of the action really stand out as cartoonish and add to the hilarity of the scene. The pair continue to fight and trade blows back and forth before Triple H is dealt with by a hard slam from a fire extinguisher to the back of his head, accompanied by a crescendo of sound effects which brought tears of laughter to my eyes. One thing that I did love is how the show used the classic DX theme throughout the episode, which gave me an even greater dose of nostalgia whilst watching. The Nation of Domination were an all-black wrestling stable who used their oppression as fuel to drive them in unity towards victory. During a feud between D-Generation X and the Nation, it was clear that race would play a part of what made up the hatred between the two competing groups. On an episode of Raw in 1998, in order to mock the Nation and their black members, DX donned blackface and stereotypical characteristics during a now infamous televised segment. Each member of DX emulated their counterpart from the Nation, Triple H dressed in a tight afro, a large eyebrow and brown makeup in order to become the Croc, a reference to Nation member Dwayne Johnson. Billy Gunn also covered himself in brown makeup, a large chain, and came to the ring puffing a cigar in order to emulate the Godfather as the Gunfather. We didn't take it that way, it was just us having fun. You look back at it now and you're like, wow, that would never go across today. But then no one was thinking about it being racist. We didn't think that way, we were just having fun. Road Dogg wore the colours of D'Lo Brown and covered himself in brown makeup to become B-Lo. What I felt in 98 when it was being done, I was totally on board with it because I thought it was a way of sparking our feud and showing the deeper rivalry between the two of us. Now, looking back at it in a 2021 mindset, I wish we could have done it without the blackface. I wish we could have gone the route without going there, because if you take the blackface away, that skit would still have been perfect. The worst offender in most people's eyes was Sean Waltman, who was tasked with mocking Mark Henry. Amongst the ragtag group of tasteless parodies, X-Pac's Mizark rendition, complete with dark face paint, overstuffed gut and afro, seems to be the one to cause the most offence. I wish I could say I was forced, but I mean, I protested. I had people on both sides of that tell me, oh no, it's okay. I'm going with them. I wish I hadn't done it almost. I mean, some people thought it was great and whatever, that's fine. Even though their on-screen relationship had now ended, from 1996 to 2000, Paul Levesque, Triple H, and Joni Laura had a complex real-life relationship. The women are generally beautiful and barely dressed. This often boosts the wrestler's popularity as well. With the fans finally paying attention, they eventually get around to noticing the wrestler and his feats in the ring. Another reason for having a female manager or valet is protection. Yes, some male wrestlers use the women as bodyguards. The most popular case of this, of course, is Chyna and Hunter Hearst Helmsley. At the beginning of her WWF career in 1997, Chyna was brought in to be D-Generation X's bodyguard, but mostly Helmsley's. During matches, she would stand outside the ring and make sure nothing illegal happened. After a while, she got a little more involved and started interfering in matches to increase Triple H's chances of winning. And with her famous low blow, she often softens up his opponents for the finisher, the pedigree.
The place is completely sold out, and every son of a bitch in here was on his feet and never sat down once. That's what it's about for us, for the two of us, is to go out there and do that to these people. That
That's the shot for us, you know what I mean? That's where we gotta have.
Both had become top stars within the company, and their connection and ability to support one another was seen as key to this. The benefits of the relationship were far from endless, however. The pair decided for a few years to keep the relationship a secret from other wrestlers and higher-ups in the WWF, for fear that they may view Joni's involvement with one of the company's most notable performers as one of self-gain and sleeping her way to the top. On our televisions, Triple H and Chyna worked together to chase championship glory. Behind the scenes, Levesque and Laura supported each other in more real-world ways. They lived together and shared the rent.
We had a huge house in New Hampshire. His career was moving up, and therefore he was having a lot of, meetings with Vince and Stephanie and the crew there.
They travelled together to save money on petrol. They went to the same gym and ate at the same restaurants. The two grew close as their worldview and ambitions for the future appeared to be perfectly aligned. However, as we've seen so often in this story, Joni's life was always only merely seconds away from going off the rails at any given moment. And for the most part, it was all out of her control. As anyone who has ever suffered from mental health struggles, including myself, we know that the problems can be tackled and alleviated, but oftentimes they never truly disappear. When the young couple began to get more serious about their relationship, they started to disagree on fundamental parts of their future life plans. These disagreements led to arguments, which led to Joni suffering from symptoms of a mental health breakdown.
I worry sometimes that I dedicate everything to this job and that maybe, 10 years from now I'm not doing this anymore and I will have not, gotten married or had kids or done things that normal people do.
Their relationship faced its challenges and eventually ended soon after. Triple H began dating Stephanie McMahon, the daughter of WWE chairman Vince McMahon, while he was still in that relationship.
By the time, Triple H and I started our on-screen storyline, we just sort of had great chemistry and it just went from there.
Something which, behind the scenes, Joni has discussed as the straw that broke the camel's back and a turning point for her mental well-being.
When I found out, I was devastated. It hurt me. I'm a human being, and nobody, whether you're a celebrity or whether you're not, likes to be cheated on, especially when it's with the boss's daughter.
They wouldn't have lasted whether Stephanie came into the picture or not. I have no animosity towards Paul. He was very good to Joni. He cared about her deeply, but she just had too many issues. Still, I really do think Paul was the only man she ever truly loved. She was devastated.
It's Vince's daughter.
Sure.
As long as you keep her happy.
It's a hell of a cash upgrade.
And also, she's very feminine.
Right.
You would call her a feminine woman.
Right.
She's certainly not like Joni.
This led to tension and conflict both personally and professionally. Chyna felt betrayed by Triple H and WWE and began feeling uncomfortable coming into work and being surrounded by all the drama.
Damn sweet when you get there, so keep trying.
Ready? Ready, let's go.
February 27th, 2000, at the Hartford Civic Center in Hartford, Connecticut. The event's title was truncated to No Way Out. The main event was a Hell in a Cell match, a match where the ring and ringside area was surrounded by a 20-foot-high roofed steel cell between WWF champion Triple H and Cactus Jack. Triple H won the match to retain his championship. WrestleMania 2000, also known as WrestleMania 16, marked the 16th installment of the annual professional wrestling pay-per-view event, produced by the World Wrestling Federation, WWF. This event unfolded on April 2nd, 2000, at the Arrowhead Pond in Anaheim, California, featuring a lineup of 9 matches. The event, which aimed to showcase the pinnacle of sports entertainment, however, received mixed reviews from critics and fans alike. The highlight of WrestleMania 2000 was the main event, a WWF Championship 4-way elimination match featuring high-profile competitors. The Big Show, accompanied by Shane McMahon, Mick Foley with Linda McMahon, The Rock alongside Vince McMahon, and the defending champion Triple H with Stephanie McMahon. The match was intense and filled with dramatic twists. Initially, The Big Show demonstrated his strength by press-slamming Triple H and The Rock, but was soon overpowered and eliminated by The Rock after a decisive rock bottom. The match continued with high stakes and high drama, including Mick Foley's elimination by Triple H using a pedigree on a steel chair. The chaos escalated with Foley's return to the ring targeting Triple H. The in-ring action was mirrored by family betrayals outside the ring, culminating in Vince McMahon's shocking attack on The Rock, marking his turn to villainy. Despite The Rock's resilience, Triple H ultimately retained his title, marking a significant moment in WrestleMania history as he became the first villain heel to win the main event. The 2000 edition of WWE Backlash, held on April 30th at the MCI Center in Washington, D.C., played a pivotal role in the evolution of WWE's pay-per-view events, transitioning from the In Your House series to a standalone monthly spectacle. This event was particularly notable not just for its high stakes, but for the way it spotlighted The Rock, one of wrestling's most charismatic and beloved figures, in a dramatic showdown that had significant ramifications for the WWE narrative. Backlash 2000 was fundamentally built around the repercussions from WrestleMania 2000, with the main event featuring The Rock challenging Triple H for the WWF Championship. This match was set against the backdrop of the ongoing intense feud involving The Rock and the McMahon-Helmsley regime, adding layers of intrigue and drama to the event. Shane McMahon served as the special guest referee, a role that introduced bias and controversy, heightening the tension and excitement of the match. The match itself was a spectacle of betrayal, resilience, and retribution. Early on, Vince McMahon's interference seemed to tilt the match in Triple H's favour, culminating in a near fall after Vince struck The Rock with the championship belt. The Rock, however, displayed his characteristic resilience and defiance by executing a double rock bottom through an announce table on both Triple H and Shane McMahon, a move that electrified the audience and shifted the momentum. The drama intensified with further interference from Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe, who were prompted by Vince McMahon to fast count against The Rock. Just as the match seemed to slip away from The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin made a stunning appearance, evening the odds by taking out Triple H, Patterson, Briscoe, Shane and Vince with a chair. Linda McMahon's subsequent arrival with referee Earl Hebner restored order to the chaos, allowing the match to conclude fairly. In the climactic moments, The Rock performed his signature spinebuster and people's elbow on Triple H, securing the victory and the WWF Championship. This win was not just a triumph in the match, but a significant moment that underscored The Rock's status as a key figure in WWE, capable of captivating and rallying the audience like few others. The aftermath of Backlash saw The Rock continuing to navigate the treacherous waters of his rivalry with the McMahon-Helmsley faction. Judgment Day 2000 emerged as a significant event in the annals of WWE, marking a pivotal moment in the ongoing saga between The Rock and Triple H. This pay-per-view event, held on May 21st, 2000, at Freedom Hall in Louisville, Kentucky, saw the rivalry escalate to new heights in a 60-minute Iron Man match for the WWF Championship, with Shawn Michaels serving as the special guest referee. The intense competition not only captivated the audience, but also underscored The Rock's resilience and star power within the WWE universe. This edition of Judgment Day was notable for its role in replacing the Over the Edge event, a change instituted following the tragic death of Owen Hart in 1999. As such, Judgment Day 2000 took on a solemn significance, offering the WWE a chance to honour its past while setting the stage for a new annual tradition. The main event encapsulated this transition, featuring a grueling test of endurance and strategy between two of the industry's top competitors. The match between The Rock and Triple H was the culmination of weeks of escalating hostility. Having been betrayed by Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 2000, The Rock faced an uphill battle against the McMahon-Helmsley regime. His victory over Triple H at Backlash, with the aid of Stone Cold Steve Austin, was a significant moment, setting the stage for the intense showdown at Judgment Day. The 60-minute Iron Man match was a showcase of both athletes' abilities and determination. The Rock, known for his charismatic persona and athletic prowess, demonstrated his strategic acumen and physical resilience, he and Triple H exchanged the lead several times throughout the contest, with each athlete scoring pinfalls and submissions. The Rock's signature moves, including a rock bottom and a people's elbow, brought the score to a nail-biting tie of 5-5, reflecting the evenly matched nature of their rivalry. However, the match's conclusion was as controversial as it was dramatic. The Undertaker, returning from an injury with his new American badass persona, intervened, attacking members of D-Generation X and the McMahon family. His assault on Triple H, though intended to aid The Rock, ultimately led to The Rock's disqualification due to outside interference, resulting in Triple H winning the match 6-5 and reclaiming the WWF Championship. The outcome of the match at Judgment Day 2000 had far-reaching implications for the storylines that followed. It intensified the animosity between The Rock and the McMahon-Helmsley regime and set the stage for future confrontations. More importantly, it highlighted The Rock's role as a central figure in WWE, capable of carrying major storylines and drawing audience support despite the adversities thrown his way. In summary, Judgment Day 2000 not only provided a platform for The Rock to showcase his enduring appeal and fighting spirit, but also reinforced his status as a cornerstone of WWE programming. The event encapsulated the dramatic and often unpredictable nature of professional wrestling, leaving fans eagerly anticipating the next chapter in the storied rivalry. By the time SummerSlam arrived, the stage was set for a showdown that promised high drama and intense action. The triple threat match at SummerSlam was fraught with chaos from the outset. Before The Rock even made his entrance, Triple H and Kurt Angle were already engaged in a fierce brawl outside the ring, which led to Angle suffering a concussion after a pedigree went awry on the announcer's table. This injury added a layer of real-life drama to the scripted chaos, underscoring the physical toll these athletes endure. As the match progressed, Stephanie McMahon Helmsley's attempts to influence the outcome by interfering with the WWF Championship belt backfired, inadvertently striking Triple H instead of The Rock. This mishap led to further disarray, with Angle making a surprising return to the ring despite his earlier injury. The tumult continued as Triple H and Angle scrambled over a sledgehammer, only to have their scuffle result in Triple H accidentally hitting McMahon. Amidst this disorder, The Rock showcased why he was the champion. With his opponents distracted and weakened, he seized the opportunity to execute a people's elbow on Triple H, securing the pinfall and successfully defending his title. The Rock's victory at SummerSlam was not just about retaining the championship, it was a testament to his ability to navigate the chaos, capitalize on opportunities, and emerge victorious against formidable opponents. SummerSlam 2000 reinforced The Rock's status as a key figure in WWE, beloved for his charisma, athletic ability, and knack for thriving in high-pressure situations. His performance at this event solidified his legacy as one of the greatest entertainers in the history of professional wrestling, capable of holding his own in one of the most intricate and heated rivalries of his era.
Wrestling news now. Today's top story. Old woman calls police on WWE.
News just in. Police have been called by an elderly grappling fan who appears to have worked herself into a shoot whilst watching her favourite brand of WWE programming. The old lady dialed 999 to request urgent police intervention. Here at WrestlePod News HQ, we've recently learned that the 64-year-old pro wrestling fan from Edinburgh in Scotland made the frantic phone call to her local Edinburgh police station when she got caught up in the hard-hitting action she had witnessed on screen. News. In a match broadcast live from Manchester, England, on Sky Television, Nora Cuthbert's favourite, Stone Cold Steve Austin, was facing off against long-time bitter rival Triple H, when the bloody action between the ropes proved too much for Miss Cuthbert and she decided to intervene. The following is actual footage from the incident, which some viewers may find disturbing. As Miss Cuthbert finished her Sunday night dinner, she was full of food, but left with a hunger for something all the more physical. The retired Scottish caretaker was a lifelong pro wrestling fan and regularly tuned in to see WWE's biggest stars compete. And as her favourite wrestling company was airing a show live from the UK, she had all the more incentive to click on the television. However, after enjoying the rest of the show, the main event began and things took a terrible turn for Nora Cuthbert. As she witnessed the violence unfold, she was disgusted and terrified. Not being able to take any more of the bloodshed, she left her TV before the final match had even ended.
Hello? Is this Edinburgh Police?
Yes, ma'am, how can I help?
There are two men fighting, and they've both taken their clothes off.
Okay, ma'am,
There's a massive crowd formed, and everyone is cheering it on.
Ma'am, we need more info.
One of them is soaking wet and spat on people as he walked past. The other bald one appears to be drunk and keeps quoting from the Bible.
Okay.
The one with the big nose has a sledgehammer and is whacking Mr. Jean Shorts with it. You've got to send help now.
Okay, ma'am. I can send officers to you immediately. Just stay calm and move away from the threat. Whereabouts are you?
I'm in Edinburgh, near the city centre.
Okay, and you can see the violence there in Edinburgh City Centre?
Well, I'm in the city centre, yeah, but I'm watching the fight on the telly. I think it's taking place in Manchester. Send help quickly. My bath's about to overrun, so I've got to go. Bye-bye for now.
A horrific incident, I'm sure you agree. The Edinburgh police will have baffled and have since put out a statement on the matter, one which shows the seriousness of the moment. News.
The fight was largely choreographed and no genuine assault was taking place. I'm quite sure it was not a police matter from start to finish.
One police spokesperson explained.
It was an unusual call and, with the gentleman being in Manchester, there was little we could have done, even if it had been a real assault.
Wrestle News Now can indeed confirm that Miss Nora Cuthbert had made the call from Edinburgh in Scotland, a distance of over 200 miles from Manchester, where the alleged crimes took place. We've run the data through our advanced news reporting computer science machine and seen that this would have meant that if the local police had mobilised when called and jumped into their cars, it would have taken them approximately 4 hours to have made the journey south, by which time every single person in the Manchester arena would have gone home, and the wrestlers would most likely have been on the plane back to America. Is this a case of gross misconduct on behalf of the police, or just sheer lazy negligence? You decide. News. Miss Cuthbert says she was adamant she was right to call for police help. She said,
He was getting a real battering, and there were blood everywhere. I was really worried. It just wasn't fair. Triple H never plays a fair game, and he was hitting poor Mr. Austin with a hammer, and I wasn't going to stand by and watch it happen.
You know, you kind of partway get back together, and
You weren't cheating, you're saying?
Yeah, I don't see things the same way she does.
Always sees it that way.
The on-screen relationship between Triple H and Stephanie McMahon quickly turned into one of the most controversial angles in WWE history. The McMahon Helmsley faction, which began in 1999, was a pivotal storyline in the company, with the duo portraying a power-hungry couple who sought to dominate WWE. However, what made the storyline even more intense was the real-life romance between the two, which began to develop around the same time. Their off-screen relationship, forming during a storyline where they were portrayed as a couple, raised eyebrows among fans and backstage personnel alike. As Bruce Pritchard recalls, we were watching everything go on in rehearsals, and it's like Man, if he isn't careful, he's going to work himself into a shoot here. The term working yourself into a shoot referred to a situation where a storyline becomes so real that it crosses into actual personal lives, and in this case, it did. For many in the wrestling business, the relationship was seen as problematic, especially because Triple H's rise to prominence was directly tied to his romance with Vince McMahon's daughter. The perception that Triple H was benefiting from his real-life relationship with McMahon caused tension backstage. Jim Ross, who worked closely with Triple H, once reflected on how it was hard to separate personal and professional matters in this situation. I was happy for them, but it was a difficult situation in a lot of ways. Several wrestlers, and even some creative minds, felt that the relationship blurred the lines of fairness in WWE's internal politics, as Triple H quickly became one of the top stars in the company, sometimes seemingly based on more than just his in-ring ability. Others expressed concern that Stephanie's involvement with Triple H contributed to his career ascent, raising the question of whether his success was as much due to his personal relationship with the McMahon family as it was to his talent. Former WWE writer Vince Russo, for instance, commented on how the McMahon-Helmsley faction essentially established Triple H as a dominant figure, thanks to the power dynamics involved. He pointed out that it was hard to see where the storyline ended and reality began. Meanwhile, WWE Hall of Famer Bret Hart also voiced his disapproval, suggesting that the couple's real-life relationship undermined the integrity of wrestling storylines, saying that it could hurt the business in the long run. These criticisms added fuel to the fire, with many feeling that the personal entanglements of McMahon and Levesque were interfering with the competitive and traditionally merit-based structure of WWE.
He sort of crawled around me. He was, on the floor and he felt my leg. And I was like, that's definitely flirtation.
If only I were a little stronger, I could get that extra yard. I could hit for extra power.
I could even be Triple H of the WWF.
Don't bet on it, kid.
Triple H, what are you doing here?
Just brushing up on a little history. But that's not important. What's important is results. Get results.
Between 1998 and 2002, Triple H underwent a dramatic physical transformation that left fans speculating whether steroids played a role in his physique change. When he first joined WWE in 1995, Triple H had a lean build, reflecting his background in bodybuilding, but without the extreme muscle mass that many wrestling stars exhibited. Following a knee injury, however, fans noticed a significant change in his appearance. He returned to the ring looking noticeably bigger and more muscular. Many speculated online, referring to it as the Triple H diet, and hinting that his transformation might not have been entirely natural. During the late 90s and early 2000s, Triple H's physique helped elevate his character, The Game, making him one of the most visually imposing figures in WWE. By 2002, he was at his physical peak, boasting a hulking physique that made him an even greater draw in the main event scene. WWE as a company valued and still values its superstars' physicality, as these physiques contribute to the spectacle that draws fans and creates marketable personas. However, this industry expectation also intensified scrutiny regarding potential steroid use by wrestlers aiming to achieve such physiques. In 2002, when Scott Steiner returned to WWE, he openly challenged Triple H to take a steroid test with him, famously remarking, "Cool, just send over Triple H in a limo and we can go take ours together." Steiner claimed that WWE backed off from the test altogether, leaving fans and insiders with lingering doubts about whether Triple H's transformation was entirely natural. Triple H's reign in the early 2000s, often referred to as the Reign of Terror, is a period that stirred both admiration and controversy in the wrestling world. His return to Raw in January 2002 after a serious injury marked the beginning of a dominance that would see him hold the World Heavyweight Championship for much of the next few years. After winning the 2002 Royal Rumble and defeating Chris Jericho at WrestleMania X8 for the undisputed WWF Championship, Triple H quickly established himself as the centerpiece of the Raw brand. However, it wasn't just his title reigns that made his time on top so controversial. It was the way in which he seemingly buried other top talent. Triple H who was positioned as the top star by both storyline and management, often found himself in feuds with established names like Chris Jericho, Shawn Michaels, and even Hollywood Hulk Hogan, overshadowing the careers of many others. When I was in the ring with Triple H, it always felt like he was trying to make sure everyone knew he was the man, said Chris Jericho, reflecting the tension that existed backstage during this period. The Reign of Terror was marked by Triple H's refusal to drop the World Heavyweight Championship for an extended period, which many critics saw as a self-serving move. I think the whole Reign of Terror was the same as what we had before, with just a new version of the same formula. It was Triple H in the spotlight with no real competition, and it did nothing for other talent.
I mean, I'll tell you a crazy story. This is one of the most infamous storylines in our business that just, like, I still get people commenting about how, like, it was just mortifying on so many levels. For some reason, he got in his mind about telling these cockamamie stories, and I was supposed to tell this story about how Kane had this girlfriend that he killed in a car crash, and it was just insane. And it ends up, I mean, I can't even believe I'm going to say I did this, I'm at a funeral home with a dummy in a coffin. Oh my God. I'm naked except I've got a skin-colored thong on, right, so nobody can see. With Kane's mask on, pretending I'm Kane, I'm on top of the coffin having mock sex with this mannequin. Oh my God!
In October 2002, Triple H became embroiled in one of the most controversial storylines of his career, involving a feud with Kane that cantered around a storyline featuring a woman named Katie Vick. As part of this feud, Triple H began making disturbing claims about Kane's past, suggesting that he had been involved in a relationship with Katie Vick, a woman who had supposedly died in a car crash. The feud escalated when Triple H insinuated that Kane had engaged in necrophilia with Vick's corpse after her death. The whole Katie Vick thing was a terrible angle, Triple H admitted in later years, acknowledging how distasteful and uncomfortable the storyline had become. The storyline reached its peak when Triple H threatened to show video footage of the alleged incident, which was eventually aired during an episode of Raw. The footage showed Triple H, dressed as Kane, simulating necrophilia with a mannequin inside a casket. This disturbing and grotesque angle was met with universal backlash from fans, critics, and even wrestlers backstage, many of whom felt the storyline went too far. It was tasteless. It was not something that should have been done. It was one of those moments that really crossed a line, said Chris Jericho, who was vocal about his displeasure with the angle. The controversy surrounding the Katie Vick storyline was so overwhelming that WWE quickly moved away from the angle after the backlash. Kane's tag team partner, the Hurricane, retaliated by airing a parody video in which someone wearing a Triple H mask was shown receiving an enema, further highlighting the absurdity and distastefulness of the situation. Despite the controversial build-up, Triple H defeated Kane at No Mercy 2002, unifying the World Heavyweight Championship and the Intercontinental Championship, but the storyline's aftermath left a lasting stain on both the feud and Triple H's image. It was something that we all regretted, and we moved on from it as quickly as possible, Triple H said, reflecting on how quickly the company had to shift gears following the negative reception. From 2003 to 2005, at its zenith, Evolution was composed of Triple H, Ric Flair, Randy Orton, and Batista, a powerhouse lineup that dominated the WWE landscape with a blend of experience, ambition, and sheer ruthlessness. This group was seen as a modern echo of Flair's previous alliance, the Four Horsemen, and it masterfully balanced the legacy of the past with the promise of the future in professional wrestling. The concept behind Evolution was not just to showcase the pinnacle of wrestling talent across different eras, but to intertwine these eras into a cohesive and dominating force. Ric Flair, the embodiment of wrestling's illustrious past, Triple H, the reigning exemplar of the present, and Randy Orton and Batista, the bright futures of the industry, formed a symbiotic relationship that propelled each member to new heights. The stable's formation narrative is intriguing, as Mark Jindrak was originally envisioned in Batista's role. However, due to various reasons, including Jindrak's perceived immaturity and Batista's initial injury setbacks, the lineup was reconfigured, ultimately proving fortuitous for the faction's legacy and individual careers. Evolution's tenure was marked by significant triumphs, including multiple championship reigns. Triple H, the group's leader, held the World Heavyweight Championship 4 times during Evolution's dominance. These accomplishments were not merely accolades, but affirmations of Evolution's stranglehold on WWE's competitive landscape. However, the faction's unity began to unravel in 2004, signalling the onset of its decline. The group expelled Orton following his World Heavyweight Championship victory at SummerSlam, a move that marked the beginning of internal dissensions. Hunter doesn't drink at all, so I'd drink and Hunter would eat a steak, Flair said. Randy doesn't drink much at all, maybe a couple drinks. Dave, I would get to come out once in a while. But those guys were so attentive to their physiques. The drinking thing just was starting to wind down with the guys, and those guys put so much time in the gym. To look like that, you got to work hard. The drinking wasn't really a part of it. I got all of them to come out one night or another, but not Hunter. I've seen Hunter maybe have 1 glass of wine. Hunter would spend more money on food at the bar than I would spend on booze. The guy would eat 6 New York strip steaks a day, I'm telling you. Evolution was more than just a faction. It was a phenomenon that encapsulated the evolution of wrestling itself, from the glory of the past to the promise of the future.
Your take on all these rumors we've been hearing about vampires.
Triple H took on the role of Jarko Grimwood, a vampire enforcer, in the 2004 film Blade Trinity. As a member of the Vampire Elite, Grimwood was a physically imposing adversary, fitting for Triple H's muscular frame and intimidating presence.
My first reaction to hearing that Triple H was in the movie and that I was going to fight him was that I'm about to be turned into a finely mashed tapioca ass pudding. Which is what happened, basically.
His performance added a layer of menace to the film, particularly in his fight scenes with Wesley Snipes' Blade. Triple H's transition from wrestling to acting was seamless in this role, as he brought the same intensity and ferocity to the character that had made him a dominant force in WWE. Playing a vampire enforcer was a natural fit for me, Triple H said. It's all about channeling that inner aggression, something I've done my whole career. The storyline began when Triple H, seeing an opportunity to exploit Eugene's naivety, pretended to befriend him. Triple H flattered Eugene and convinced him that they were friends, all while secretly planning to use Eugene for his own gain. Triple H's manipulation was part of a broader strategy to weaken Chris Benoit, who was the reigning World Heavyweight Champion and had developed a close bond with Eugene. Triple H saw Eugene as a tool to get into Benoit's head, distracting the champion and potentially causing him to lose focus. Ric Flair and Batista, as members of Evolution, supported Triple H's plan, further manipulating Eugene and setting him up for emotional and physical torment. The tension escalated as Eugene, unaware of the true intentions of Evolution, found himself increasingly involved in high-stakes situations that he was not prepared for. Chris Benoit played a crucial role in this storyline as Eugene's friend and protector. Recognizing Eugene's vulnerability and the dangers posed by Evolution, Benoit tried to warn Eugene about Triple H's deceitful nature. Despite Benoit's efforts, Eugene remained under the influence of Triple H, leading to a series of events that strained Eugene's relationship with Benoit. Benoit's frustration grew as he watched Eugene being manipulated, but his protective instincts never wavered. William Regal, who was initially introduced as Eugene's mentor and caretaker, also became deeply involved in the storyline. Regal's role was to guide Eugene and help him navigate the complex and often dangerous world of WWE. As Evolution's manipulation of Eugene became more apparent, Regal, much like Benoit, took on the role of a protector trying to shield Eugene from further harm. Regal's concern for Eugene added an emotional depth to the storyline as he had grown fond of Eugene and viewed him almost as a son. The rivalry between Eugene and Evolution saw several matches that highlighted Eugene's unexpected wrestling abilities, but also his susceptibility to being outsmarted by the more cunning members of Evolution. Eugene's involvement in matches with Evolution members often resulted in physical beatdowns or situations where Eugene's innocence was exploited, leading to heartbreaking moments for the audience who had grown attached to his character. One key match that intensified the rivalry was a tag team match where Eugene teamed up with Chris Benoit to face Triple H and Ric Flair. During the match, Triple H's true colours were revealed as he brutally attacked Eugene, shattering the illusion of friendship and leaving Eugene devastated. This betrayal was a turning point in the storyline, as it not only solidified Triple H as a top heel, but also garnered immense sympathy for Eugene. The events leading up to SummerSlam 2004 saw Eugene being pushed to his limits. With the betrayal by Triple H still fresh, Eugene was determined to prove himself, leading to the booking of a match between Eugene and Triple H at SummerSlam. This match was heavily anticipated, not only because of the emotional build-up, but also because it pitted the underdog against one of the most dominant figures in WWE history. The match at SummerSlam 2004 was the culmination of the intense rivalry between Eugene and Triple H. Despite his relative inexperience and the psychological torment he had endured, Eugene entered the match with determination. The match itself was a brutal affair, with Triple H using his experience and ruthlessness to dominate Eugene. However, Eugene's resilience and unexpected bursts of offense kept the crowd engaged as they rooted for the underdog to overcome the odds. Throughout the match, Ric Flair and William Regal played pivotal roles. Flair, as part of Evolution, attempted to interfere on behalf of Triple H, while Regal, true to his role as Eugene's mentor, tried to even the odds. Despite Eugene's valiant effort, the match ended with Triple H securing the victory, but the storyline succeeded in establishing Eugene as a sympathetic and resilient character in the eyes of the WWE audience. Triple H knew exactly how to get the most out of Eugene, but still not getting too much and preserving the title run to Benoit and then passed it to Randy, and that's where I wrestled Triple H. The crowd turned on me, Toronto turned on me big time. In my head now looking back, I should have thrown a temper tantrum and told them to shut up and started feeding into it. But I was kind of in between because I was in there with Triple H and it's his match and he's calling the match. I'm following him. I don't feel like I need to break off, but it was a good reaction, although it wasn't the reaction that I got in the previous months in the build-up. At WrestleMania 27, the story was one of brotherhood and revenge. Triple H, a close ally of Shawn Michaels, vowed to end the streak in honor of his fallen brother. The history between Triple H and The Undertaker was one that had stretched through most of these men's careers, thus making the build to the match feel even more personal and organic than it had been in many years prior. Two older veterans, in-ring generals and masters of the art of pro wrestling, The Undertaker and Triple H, told an intriguing story during their match of being past their primes, but never wanting to go out on their back, always ready for that one last fight. As The Undertaker caught Triple H desperately in a Hell's Gate submission after a grueling half-hour match, both men looked exhausted as if they had given everything at this moment. Even though The Undertaker's streak remained intact and his number rose to 19 consecutive victories, for many, the state that The Undertaker was in after the match showed the toll that holding up such a legacy had taken on his body. With the dead man, for the first time, showing a real human side, with the inability to complete his legendary walk backstage, he needed aid just to make the journey. A Hell in a Cell match between Triple H and Undertaker at WrestleMania 28, with Shawn Michaels as the guest referee. This concoction of sublime pro wrestling ingredients led to one of the most interesting stories within a match that I've ever seen. The emotional journey that all three men go through on this night is remarkable. The Undertaker wants to regain his pride after what he felt was a poor showing the previous year, even if he did win. Triple H wanted revenge for his loss to the dead man, and Shawn Michaels, coming out of retirement to get in the ring as the referee, firmly caught in the middle between two lifelong friends in the real world. The veil of pro wrestling was dropped during the match, leading to an incredible display of memorable moments and heart-wrenching close calls. In a battle that stretched for over half an hour, there are far too many great moments to recall right now. But by the end, as The Undertaker delivered a tombstone piledriver and Shawn Michaels counted to 3, all three men could stand tall. For even though the winner of the match and his consecutive 20th victory at WrestleMania was The Undertaker, all three men had been a part of one of the greatest matches in WWE history and deservedly would go on to be known as the end of the era.
And when you combine someone who is intelligent and always thinking about the craft with the physical prowess, loves training, those are extraordinary combinations.
As Triple H's role behind the scenes in WWE expanded, particularly from 2010 onward when he became the Executive Vice President of Talent and Creative, his influence on both the business and creative direction of the company grew. However, this shift led to increasing negative fan reactions, both on-screen and off. Triple H's executive position, though essential for WWE's corporate growth, became a point of contention for fans. Many perceived his rising power as an extension of his on-screen persona, the self-interested, power-hungry authority figure which mirrored the heel role he had often portrayed. The fanbase began to see him as a symbol of corporate favoritism, accused of blocking younger talent in favor of protecting his own interests. His positioning within the Authority, the heel faction that he co-founded with Stephanie McMahon, furthered this narrative. The Authority consistently made decisions that aligned with their own power, pushing stars like Roman Reigns and John Cena over more popular and deserving fan favourites, leading to widespread frustration among the audience. The negative fan reaction intensified as Triple H became more involved in storyline developments that often positioned him at the top of WWE's hierarchy. His prolonged involvement in championship matches, such as his 2016 Royal Rumble win, was widely seen as self-serving and contributed to a sense of stagnation. Behind the scenes, his decision-making as part of WWE's creative team and his apparent influence on talent decisions contributed to frustration among wrestlers, some of whom felt that Triple H was more interested in maintaining his legacy than in promoting fresh talent. The handling of up-and-coming superstars like Daniel Bryan, CM Punk, and Roman Reigns were often seen through this lens.
He's never liked me ever since when I got my job in 2005. He actually petitioned for me to be fired.
With Triple H frequently accused of protecting his own position at the top of the company, while Triple H's influence behind the scenes ultimately helped shape WWE into a modern global entity, it also led to the creation of a more corporate, controlled atmosphere that some fans and wrestlers alike criticized for stifling creativity and the development of new stars. As WWE's power structure solidified around Triple H's leadership, the perception of his on-screen role as a corporate champion only deepened, fueling resentment among the fan base and feeding into an ongoing narrative of corporate interference in wrestling storylines. Ultimately, the power dynamics between Triple H and the rest of WWE's roster, along with his often polarizing on-screen persona, highlighted the negative impact of his backstage influence during this era. Triple H's in-ring career is marked by a slew of accolades, championships, and high-profile victories that have made him a central figure in WWE history. Over the years, he accumulated 14 world titles, making him one of WWE's most decorated champions. He was also instrumental in legendary factions like D-Generation X and Evolution, cementing his reputation as a dominant force both in and out of the ring. Triple H's resume includes 3 Royal Rumble victories, multiple WrestleMania main events, and historic rivalries with icons like The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker, and Shawn Michaels. Many fans and wrestlers acknowledge these achievements, but others feel his success was often due to his behind-the-scenes power rather than pure in-ring merit. Critics argue that Triple H's title reigns were excessively prolonged, and that his influence backstage often led to him booking himself in prominent roles at the expense of rising talent. Wrestler CM Punk famously said that Triple H didn't elevate others and was more concerned with his own status, often burying promising stars to maintain his position. Punk stated in an interview he should be trying to elevate guys, but instead he's just the guy with the golden shovel, implying that Triple H prioritized his own storyline dominance instead of building the next generation, and insiders see Triple H's career as shaped more by politics than performance. Paul Levesque's marriage to Stephanie McMahon, Vince McMahon's daughter, is seen by critics as a pivotal factor in his rise to power. Wrestling analyst Dave Meltzer once remarked, "The perception is reality. He married into the McMahon family and became virtually untouchable. Meltzer, along with other critics, argues that Levesque's familial connection to WWE's ownership shielded him from the competitive pressures that other wrestlers faced and gave him access to opportunities that may not have come otherwise. Ultimately, while Triple H's career is undeniably influential, there remains a vocal segment of fans and wrestling insiders who believe his accolades and achievements are more reflective of his power behind the curtain than purely his wrestling ability. As former WWE talent Ryback once said, being married to the boss's daughter is the best finishing move he ever used, summarising a perspective that Triple H's in-ring success may be less about raw talent and more about calculated positioning within the WWE hierarchy. The next part feels like a storyline taken directly from a HBO drama like Game of Thrones or Succession. Taking over in Vince's absence is his son-in-law, Paul Levesque, better known in WWE as Triple H. And why wouldn't he? After all, can you think of a better man suited for the position?
You know him as a cerebral assassin, the King of Kings!
14-time WWE World Heavyweight Champion.
The Game!
Triple H.
Triple H.
Triple H.
Triple H!
But when we look at the wider, longer picture, we see a real-life story which, in my opinion, far outweighs any drama the writers behind the scenes in WWE could ever imagine. If we travel back to the late 90s, just as in some medieval fantasy, pro wrestlers were forbidden for dating the daughter of the king. It would have made things far too complicated. Vince always stuck to his father's advice of keeping a separation between a promoter and a performer. But for young Stephanie, the allure of the forbidden fruit proved too strong. My dad gave us the okay to date, and then took it away, because if we were really going to be together, it would have to be a big deal, and it would have to be the right thing to do. So he let us come together, and then he made us be apart, and we came back together again, and if it was meant to be, it was meant to be. In secret, she began dating Triple H, whom at the time was still to make his way into the main event. Before anything happened romantically between us, we spoke to Vince about the situation, and he told us he was okay with him. Soon after that, though, he changed his mind. He said he gave it more thought and realised, this won't work out. You two cannot do this. He took it away just like that. Their love proved too powerful to hide for long, and soon their relationship became known by the company. In an attempt to separate the pairing, Vince wrote a storyline where Stephanie would be married off to a young stud by the name of Test. However, when Vince spoke to Triple H and realised that his feeling for Stephanie were genuine, the storyline changed. On screen, we saw Triple H sedate an unsuspecting Stephanie and steal her away from the altar, only to conduct a marriage ceremony of his own in Las Vegas. All of these on-screen antics proved the foundation for the pair's real-life relationship to flourish from. In October of 2003, they would go on to be married for real in New York City. Over the next 15 years, both Paul and Stephanie's stock would continue to rise within WWE, both proving to be dedicated to the company, something which Vince has proved to value over all else. Stephanie has worked tirelessly behind the scenes in order to develop the company's relationships in the US and internationally, as well as contributing massively to WWE's charitable efforts. I really enjoy doing the things I do with WWE. Paul Levesque is the guy, but don't think that Stephanie McMahon is not. That is one of the smartest people in the business, and I'm sure they talk about stuff all the time because that's the element of the couple that they are.
It was hard to get in the business. I wanted to change all that. And so we opened up the Performance Center, which is a 30,000 square foot state-of-the-art. It compares to anything the NFL
You're training
has.
people to become WWE stars.
And that's kind of the carrot.
Triple H was given the trust of Vince when he was handed the reins of WWE developmental brand NXT, a task which Levesque proved beyond doubt that he was capable of, taking NXT from small-time developmental to a taster of the main stage as WWE's third brand. Triple H and McMahon seemingly share a similar outlook on how things should be run in general within the company. However, both Paul and Vince have many areas where their ideas seem to clash. Chocolate and vanilla. I want chocolate, you want vanilla. One of us has to pick a flavour. Vince would always pick the flavour. Now it's my turn to pick the flavour. It's all good, it's all ice cream, but it's my time to pick the flavour, and I have to be confident in these decisions. I can't look back and say, what would Vince want to have for flavour? Because it just wouldn't be authentic then. Look, in some manner, I think for both of us it's a tough situation for him, and I think in some manner it's even harder for me, even now that he's not in the equation and he's not in any way, shape or form. But it's hard to think about, right? That he's not here. And I think in that moment, it was hard for him to think about somebody coming in and doing what he's done for 50 years successfully, better than anybody in the world. So yeah, there was definitely that moment, definitely giving me advice, but also in some manner, most of that advice was centered around, this is what you've been sitting next to me learning how to do for 25 years, and you got it. Just be confident in your decision making, listen to people, be open to ideas, be collaborative with other people, things like that. Just wonderful advice. When tragedy struck and Paul Levesque suffered a heart attack, his position atop NXT was vacated. At this time, NXT changed from the much-beloved black and gold brand, complete with some indie legends and up-and-comers, to an out-and-out developmental brand once again, the image of the show being overhauled as the title was changed to NXT 2.0. Many of the foundations set by Triple H were removed and his project was reconstructed in his absence. In the image of his father-in-law, whom claimed he had always reserved the final say over all aspects of WWE programming, including NXT. To many, this seemed like a punishment for NXT's performance as it went up against AEW Dynamite, but this has never been confirmed. What is clear to see, however, is that the timing of these huge changes cannot simply be a coincidence. A few years on and now Vince must vacate his throne. His son has been reckless, hot-headed and never looked fully committed to becoming the heir. His daughter is a capable leader in her own right and a well-established businesswoman, but she has never gained a deeper understanding of the promotion and presentation of pro wrestling as she has never acted as a regular in-ring performer. Triple H, Paul Levesque, he has it all. Family loyalty, work ethic, industry experience, great connection. He really does seem to be the perfect person to be claimed the new king of WWE and take on what seems to be one of the most complicated and difficult jobs in the entire entertainment industry. At one point, Vince realized that in order to maintain the success of the WWE, he would have to begin to look outside of the family for a successor. No, I don't think about it a lot. Hopefully, if you built something, hopefully you want it to continue and prosper and grow, whether that's with a family member or without a family member. You have to be objective and look at family members, whoever it is, just like you would other employees. And quite frankly, I probably have expected more out of my family members, which is probably not the right thing either. However, we all now know that the rightful heir to the WWE throne has been for a while Triple H. His marriage to Stephanie not only afforded him a close connection to Vincent McMahon, but also a chance to continue on the bloodline in his honour. Stephanie McMahon and Triple H are continuing one of pro wrestling's most impressive family trees. Stephanie said, "My oldest daughter has already started training, and I would encourage them to follow their passion and whatever they believe in, as long as they work hard at it. I believe in a strong work ethic, and I believe they can do anything in the world they want to do, but they are going to have to believe in themselves and work hard." We have 3 daughters, Triple H and I do. Our oldest said when she was 8 years old, "Mama, I don't want your job. Daddy, I don't want your job. I want Pop's," meaning Vince McMahon's job. So just like her grandfather, she wants to be the boss. So we'll see what happens with my oldest daughter, who has already started training in the ring. My youngest daughter is also very interested, but she's all about personality. Oh my goodness, I can't wait to see what she's going to do. Stephanie McMahon and Triple H are continuing one of pro wrestling's most impressive family trees. Stephanie said, "My oldest daughter has already started training, and I would encourage them to follow their passion and whatever they believe in, as long as they work hard at it. I believe in a strong work ethic, and I believe they can do anything in the world they want to, but they are going to have to believe in themselves and work hard." Shane McMahon, although no longer working with WWE, has 3 sons who have been involved on several occasions with the company, appearing alongside their father on television and showing a love for pro wrestling which has long since been present in their blood. Through all of these years, generations of dedicated and passionate McMahons have given their lives to deliver us a product which entertains and amazes. Through the highest of highs and the lowest depths of sex, lies and murder, one constant has stood true for more than a century. The McMahon family name will forever be held as the most important cornerstone of the modern industry, and should be respected and praised for decades to come. What will happen across these coming decades is anyone's guess, but one thing is for certain. With the McMahon family at the helm, their beloved WWE isn't going anywhere anytime soon.